Welcome back to another SuperCoach video. This is going to be my last before round one. I promise you might catch me doing a bit of a live stream or something during the week, but yeah, I don't think there'll be any more videos. For those that actually watched to the end of the last video, you got the drop that I was going to do a final rate my team, and I guess rather than announcing on Twitter and getting a whole bunch of riffraff, I'm rewarding those that actually, have been around watching the YouTube video, staying to the end. So thank you guys. Thank you for supporting the channel, and let's jump into some of your teams. Of course, I'm going to try and rip through these as quick as possible. I think I've got a good list of about 10 to 15 that came through. And I don't want to labor on them too much, so we're going to go through the interesting picks, try not to repeat myself too much, and hopefully make it as interesting and as useful as possible. So starting off here with Kika. Yeah, that's either meant to be a swear word or I've just butchered the pronunciation. Anyway, let's have a look. So, Corn. Ooh, this is I guess a very heavy mid-price team. So straight off the bat, what appears to me is just the two recognised premiums in defence with Ridley and Short, and then you've got McInerney, Hewitt, and Chapman all down there. So really stocking up some mid prices or some value in the midfield. So similar, rather than going a Took or a Steele at M2, you've got Jelly in there, and then Cripps at M4, which is definitely not a popular option at the moment. And you haven't dropped any of the expensive mid rookies. Wow. So Horn, Francis, and Stevens on the bench at the moment. And then Ruck's paid up there as well, Gawn and Grundy. And in the forward line, Dunkley, Butters, Cogs, McGovern, Cherry, Rochelle, Durden, and Martin, which is very stock standard forward line. So the forward line I love, obviously, very much like mine. And I think the premiums that you have picked are good across the board. Like even Kelly, if you were looking for a cheaper midfield option, I would probably have Parrish ahead of him, but he's 40k more. And then I guess you could consider Brayshaw at the same price. But I guess like the criticism for this team would be, for mine anyway, that there's probably a little bit too much value left on the mid bench at the moment, and probably a little bit too heavy on the mid prices. So I would be thinking about consolidating like either McInerney or Hewitt or Cripps, and figuring out which one of those did you want to put up to another premium, and maybe one of them down to a rookie. I would probably be moving Cripps out just because it moves Horn Francis onto the field. And because as it sounds, you've got Ridley, Short, McRae, Kelly, Neal, that's 5, 2 in the rucks, 2 in the forward, that's... Ridley, Short, 5, 7, 9 recognised premiums, and this is probably too short. And that'd be the biggest criticism of the team. I think there's lots of value to be had here, but you're going to be short on premiums. It's going to be very hard to catch up. So I'd be trying to get, like Cripps probably out, and then getting a couple more premiums, unless you're really confident that a Cripps or a McInerney or a Hewitt, like two of those have to be keepers for you. And as long as that comes true, then you're doing really well. But if they don't, then you're going to be really far behind. And that's the last thing you got to consider with this team. All right, Tricky F1. I mean, he's not in the side, so that's a little bit disappointing. No big kahuna. All right, so let's have a look down back. So Ridley, Short, Whitfield, Hewitt, Chapman. A combo that we've been seeing in the Discord a lot. McCartan, obviously great defensive rookie, and then no Hinge here, I think is a bit of a miss. Betting on Wilmot coming back in round 2 and securing a spot is a very risky play, but only 16,000 in the bank. It's cut off a little bit on the video, but I guess that is going to make it hard to get him in, but one knock. And then midfield, so McRae, Took, Parrish, Neal. So this is a deep midfield with 3 or 4 primos, really. Parrish at that slightly cheaper price point than Steele, which I don't hate as an option. Rao Berry, and then no Horn Francis is how it's been accommodated for in the midfield. Grundy, Marshall in the rucks, and the forward line is that stock standard one we just went over again. I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think it's interesting that forwards are always one of the most interesting places, but a lot of kind of landed on a similar structure just based on what the rookies have forced us into. So 11 primos here, which is good, and then Hewitt, Chapman, Rao, Berry, McGovern, and Cherry all on top of it. I guess how that's been achieved is by compromising Darcy or Gawn for Marshall. And I think this is a really tricky one, because as long as Marshall was solo ruck and there's no rider in the side, I would love this, and I'd probably do it myself. The issue is, as soon as Ryder comes back, Marshall is going to drop from a 105, 110, even a 115 average back to, I think, high 90s, mid 90s. And that just puts him so far behind Darcy or Gone. So if you're going with this setup, you kind of have to hope that the money that you've used elsewhere, so getting someone like Hewitt into the side, for example, which I think is basically where it's been used, or like, yeah, Parrish, it's like getting Parrish in as well. Yeah, you really have to hope that that makes up for Marshall potentially underperforming Gone or Darcy when Ryder's back in the side. And I think Ryder's likely to play 10, 12 games. I mean, I know he's got an Achilles and he's due back early, but I think, yeah, about half the games of the season would be the over-under, and that just really limits Marshall as a pick for mine. Only other thing I'd call out is, yeah, this is betting against Horn Francis is a bit of an antipod, and that I don't hate. Like, honestly, if you're going to drop someone to do something creative, Horn Francis is the one I could see people dropping. So I honestly don't mind it that much. It's just in the situation that the first two games on their fixture is really good. So they've got, I think, Collingwood and Hawthorn. Yeah, so two games they could win. I want to say it's two easy games. I think it's harder after that. And so the question for you would be, so say Horn Francis does pop off in those first two games and he goes 80 and 80 or 90 and 90 or something like that. What do you do at that point? Because I think that's the tricky part with this team. And it doesn't seem obvious to me how you correct that. So yeah, apart from that, I really like some of the other interesting choices that you've put together to make this team unique and make it your own. It does look different to some of the other teams at the moment, but I do think there are some risks in having this back line, because they all share so the Ridley, Short, Whitfield, Hewitt all share the same bye, which I think can be overcome, but it's something to be aware of. And then obviously having Hewitt and Chapman, you might have two there picks there that you have to trade out. A little bit risky. No Horn Francis, a little bit risky. I like the Parrish pick, and I think Marshall's a little bit risky. But overall, interesting, unique team. Yeah, good luck for the year. All right, Tomo. Thompson. Yeah, that's where Tomo has come from. All right, let's have a look. So down back, Crisp, Short, Whitfield, Sicily, Hewitt. And then McRae took Neil Rao. Okay, so this is paid up in defence. Obviously three premium defenders in Sicily and Hewitt. And then the midfield looking pretty similar to mine. You've got Gawn, Grundy, and then the same forward line everyone else does, except with like Brody over Cherry, which is could be how we all go if Cherry doesn't get named in position. So his comments down the side here read, "This is my team currently. I'm really unsure whether to go Stewart or Ridley and Chapman or Hewitt and Sicily. I know my team is pretty generic, but it'd be awesome if you could review it." So I think this is a real consideration, and this looks very similar to my team with some small differences. I think one big problem, by the way, is Gibkiss I probably just wouldn't have over Hinge. I think Hinge is worthwhile starting at that spot. So how you actually find the money to do that, I'm not sure. Or I guess you probably don't need Stevens. We'll get to 117k mids. So Hoff has already been named for West Coast. Owens for St Kilda looks likely and could score pretty well. And even Saligo, if we get desperate from Adelaide, is an option as well. So maybe that's how you do it. So in terms of, I guess, the big question here, which is Sicily and Hewitt, or a Stewart and a Chapman. So I think the problem with Sicily and Hewitt is if you go this route, they're not going to make as much money, I believe. And you have to make sure that one is a keeper to keep up with the Stewart and Chapman combo. And that is why, for me, I would personally lean towards like the Stewart or Ridley and Chapman path, just because you are definitely buying a keeper and some money generation, where this you're getting some money generation, some value, but you may get no keepers. And if you have to trade out both Hewitt and Sicily throughout the year and upgrade them, or have one of them underperforming at D6, that is quite poor. So for me, I think the slightly safer move is to go Stewart or Ridley and Chapman over the Hewitt and Sicily. But this is really hard because I don't love Sicily as an option, and I don't love Chapman as an option. But I do like Ridley, and even to a lesser extent Stewart, and I do like Hewitt. So it's hard because both of those combos have someone I like and someone I don't like. But I think just in terms of SuperCoach tried and tested strategy, the guns and rookies approach is probably the way to go. So Stewart and Ridley plus Chapman would be where I'm leaning towards at the moment. But otherwise, yeah, great team. Love it. All right. Warren, so hey JD, really get a lot out of your content. Here's my contender for rate my team. We'll change rookies as needed left over. We'll go for mid-price to a primo, maybe starting Bruce on the bench. Ooh, to save trade with fingers crossed that Max picks up DPP with Cherry after 6 weeks. Or after week 6. All right, cool. I think the likelihood that Gorn or Marshall pick up DPP at week 6 is pretty low, just by the way. I mean, it could happen. But yeah, I think it's pretty low. And so one other thing to note with this team as well is that there is 330k in the bank. So a bit of money left here for Warren to play around with. Let's see what we can do with that. So down back, similar defense, I guess, to what I've run in the past with Richards over Chapman. And I don't hate Richards as an alternate to Chapman. Frees up a little bit of money. He's more mature age. He's getting a lot of rave reviews. Dale and McRae both talked him up in last week in terms of someone that could have a breakout year at the Dogs. And you've got other players like Hunter seemingly falling out of favor over players like Richard. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the gusto to pull the trigger on Richards over Chapman, but I definitely am interested in it. So you've got a Driscoll on the bench. A Driscoll won't be playing round 1. I would be paying up for Hinge with one of these, and if DeConing gets named, that'd be who would be the other option for me on your bench at the moment. In the midfield, so Miller, Neal, Cripps, Rowell, Horn-Francis, Dacos, Ward, Stevens, Rochelle, Stevens, and McDonald. So the big thing here for me is you just short on a primo at the moment. How many have we got in the team? So Chris Ridley short, Hewitt's kind of a half, Miller and Neal, Cripps is kind of a half. Yeah, it looks a little bit short, which I mean, with 300k in the bank, you'd expect it would be. So yeah, in your midfield, I would be looking to get Cripps up to one of the premiums, probably McRae for mine. I just think he's someone that you have to have. And then Berry being omitted from the midfield, I think is a bit of a miss. He, at 260k, we know he's got the job security. We know he's got a good role. We've seen him go 95 in the past. That's pretty much better than anyone else you're going to get at the same price range. So excluding him is not something I would personally do. Marshall, we've talked a little about already. And then in the forward line, yeah, Martin, which I've seen a few people talk about. I personally am not interested in Martin. I mean, he was 15Ks lighter and had to come back from that over the off season, even with talk of more midfield time. I think he's someone that we've seen continuously destroy Carlton and then start slow throughout the first half of the year. Someone you can pick up for the back end of the year if you really need to. Not someone I would personally be starting with. So yeah, I would also look at getting rid of Martin, moving Rochelle back into the forward line, and then potentially playing around with, can you get in your Berry, can you get Cripps up to a primo in your midfield, and those are the changes I've been making. But yeah, otherwise, unique team. I love the Richards pick. I hope some people do go for it because I think it will pay off. But yeah, nice team. And then let's have a look. So in the DMs, I think was this VDL? Tom VDL. All right, so deep down defensive. This is tight budget here. Oh, so there's some stuff I don't like already. Okay, let's get into it. So obviously deep in defense, four defenders plus Hewitt here, which is nice. Obviously very safe and secure down there. The midfield, you've got the 3 big mids, plus Rao, plus Berry, plus the 4 top rookies. And McDonald, the thing I don't like here is the loophole at M11. Long won't be playing, and I presume this has knowingly been picked as a loophole. Don't love that, especially when you have Sten that also has suspect job security, and then you've got Hollands who also won't be playing round 1. I guess Hollands can be traded out for McEntee. But yeah, that's not ideal. And then Gorn and Grundy, which is fine. Dunkley, Butters, Cogs, Brody, Rochelle, McCartan in the forward line. Oh, wow. I didn't even realize McCartan wasn't down back. Oh, I see. Yeah, so Gibcus on field isn't really an option. I'm not loving that. So I would be getting rid of Gibcus, putting McCartan down back, bringing Durden into your forward line for sure. Long needs to then get moved up to 117k mid somehow. And I think that still requires you to play get another forward rookie. So I think you're probably looking at Baldwin at 123k would be your other option there. Or you could even do something like bring De Conning forward and get Hinge into your backline, but I'm just not sure you're going to have enough cash for it. And I think that's the issue with going Hewitt at that D5 position over someone like a Chapman, is that you have to compromise your rookies a little bit to make it happen, which is what you've done. Now, obviously, if the Hewitt pick pays off, then no worries at all. But I am not confident enough that I would compromise rookies to make that happen. And that's probably the big difference between my team and how I'm planning to structure up and what you've got here. So one for you to consider. But yeah, otherwise, nice team, like the Primos and all that good stuff. I'm pretty happy with this. Just waiting for the team announcements to start rookies. I've had Cripps in and out about 6 times and finally decided on him being in. Very popular. A lot of Cripps teams. I think it's better to trade him out if he's a fizzer than try to find the cash and trade him in if his scoring goes nuts. I guess on the flip side is we've seen Cripps underperformed the last 2 years. I know there's been mitigating reasons why and a lot of optimism around how he could improve this year. But I think he's probably at the point where I wouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt and I'd wait for him to prove it to me and adjust if I needed to rather than vice versa. All right, so let's having a look. 3, 6, 8, so 10 premiums, and then you're really relying on one of Hewitt or Cripps to be a keeper as well, which I don't love. Like Hewitt's borderline. I think if Hewitt's keeper 12, it's okay. If he's keeper 11, I'm a little bit unsure. So with this structure going deeper in the midfield, you've got to play 2 defensive rookies. I think Hinge and McCartan are all right, but then O'Driscoll just becomes a loophole at this point. Oh, you got 116k in the bank. All right, so you've got a little bit of options there. Could go up to someone like a Gibkiss if you're happy with him for 50k. In the midfield, so Horn Francis has been cut to make way for Cripps, and if you love Cripps, then I think that's fine. As I've kind of mentioned, I don't think Horn Francis is an absolute must-have. It's just what happens if he really goes crazy during those first couple of weeks, and you kind of feel like you have to bring him in. How do you do that? I mean, maybe it's someone like with the amount of money you've got, I guess you've got options. Like you could get O'Driscoll to Gibkiss, and I think you'd still even have enough for like someone like Stevens to Horn Francis if you had to correct, which wouldn't be the end of the world. But then, yeah, the rest of this looks fine. I mean, so yeah, solve the O'Driscoll problem. Figure out if you want Cripps that badly. Like, I guess like everything else is spot on. Yeah, I think if you want to go Cripps, this is probably one of the best teams I've seen that has Cripps in it. So yeah, hats off to you. I like it. I mean, personally, I'm not a big Cripps believer, but if you are huge on him, then what you've done is great. Okay, let's have a look here. So deep in defense, yep, once again, we got cash. We don't have cash. We just have a rate my team. So no Hinge here, I think, is a miss. I would definitely have Hinge over Gibkiss. Mids look good, except there's no Rowell. Gorn and Witts, and then Dunkley, Butters, Cogs. Where is the money gone? I have a feeling there's money left over with this team. Because I have a feeling that if you cut Darcy or Grundy for Witts, you should have enough money to still have Rowell and have everything else in this team. But I'm a little bit worried because there's no Hinge and there's no Stevens. There's McGuinness in there instead. And there's not even a McGovern or a Brody in the forward line. So, yeah, I guess like I'm a little bit worried because even though you do have the paid up defense, you've got the same problem where Ridley, Short, Whitfield, Hewitt, and Gibkiss all share the same first buy. You don't have Hinge, you don't have Stevens. And then the midfield is strong because you have the extra midfielder. But there's no Rowell, which isn't a compromise I love making. And the Witts thing I just think is too risky. So, I mean, even if you did Hewitt down to Hinge and Witts up, I think I would like this team a lot more. And then I'm happy with you like taking the bet against Rowell and having everything else work out for you. That'd be my main feedback. Yeah, so I think this is probably too risky for me personally. It could work though. I've said in Discord that like I could see the winning team this year being a Witts team because you just don't have to compromise by getting Chapman. And if Witts pays off, you could make 150k, upgrade during the buys, and kind of work out all right. But yeah, too risky for me. I personally wouldn't do it, but otherwise, like solid team. I think just a couple of rookie issues to fix if you can. All right, let's have a look here. So 46k in the bank. Oh, Lukosius. No. Oh, okay. This is a team that can definitely use some help. All right. Okay. All right, so let's just go through the picks I don't like quickly because that's where most of the discussion is going to be. So firstly, Alir I don't think is playing a game. If he was, would be interesting as a pick, but that's someone you can definitely move on for. And same with the Driscoll. So you need Sam DeConning and Hinge in your back line. Lukosius, please get away from. He's going to be playing in the forward line. Will not be scoring well. He's not playing halfback. He's not getting kickouts. So at the similar price, you've got Sicily, McInerney, and Hewitt. I would personally order them Hewitt, McInerney, Sicily, or maybe Sicily over McInerney. I don't know. I wouldn't pick either of those. I'd just be taking Hewitt. So yeah, those are the things in defense. In the middle, Green, I don't think is going to get enough opportunity to properly break out this year, and I would much prefer backing in someone like Cripps at the same price or a very similar price if you had to. And then Cogs in the middle is a no-no. I'd be moving him into the forward line. We've got lots of good rookies, lots of good value there. So yeah, be moving Cogs out, getting Berry into the midfield instead. And then, yeah, so in your forward line, you need Cogs. No Riccardi, please. He's playing forward, will not score well. Ugle-Hagen, I don't even know if he's getting games, but yeah, these two need to be moved out. So Cogs in for one of them, and then McGovern or Brody in for the other is what I'd be doing. And then Dustin Martin, don't love as a pick. I would go for Butters, who just provides so much more value and upside as long as he can stay healthy. So yeah, not too far off, but definitely some changes to be made. Oh, and Sitsas won't be playing round one from all reports. So you're looking at 117k mid, which we've touched on a few. Owens, Hoff, for example, would be where I'd be looking. Oh, and Sarong also won't be playing. So you're probably looking at Dixon or Martin from Essendon at this spot instead. Frees up a little bit of money. All right, three more. James's side here. Oh, he's got the photo of the screen. We love that. Love a bit of a low resolution, bit of blur. It actually feels more authentic to SuperCoach. You've been doing it for a while. All right, down back. So we've got Ryan as a pod, not someone that I personally love as an option. And the reason why is pretty simple. He has had great upside and has had it for a while. Plus he can intercept, plus he can take kick-ins, all these good things. But he is much more injury prone than some of the others we've had down back. And they are adding more and more talent to their defense that can be other avenues to exit or take kickouts. So Jordan Clark, you've got Hayden Young coming back. You've got Chapman going down there as well, who's not a bad user either. So Ryan is someone I would be avoiding, and I'd be looking at this price point for one of the safer options, such as a Stewart or a Crisp. Or even a Rich, I would take over Ryan personally. So yeah, that's one thing I'd be looking at fixing up. Once again, this is another team that has Gibcus, no Hinge. I would order Hinge over Gibcus just because of the scoring potential. I know there's some injury risk, but yeah, I would be starting with Hinge. And if something does happen, I just correct to Gibcus. But I like going the other way around is not going to be fun, especially when we know Hinge is going to score better of the two. I say no, we heavily predict that'll be the case. Midfield is looking on point, can't fault it. Ruck's looking great, can't fault it. And then the forward line, yeah, looking really strong too. I mean, personally, McGovern over Brody for me, but I could see a world where Brody ends up in my forward line. So love this team for all things but the Ryan pick. I guess it is really your only big pod here, and it's probably how you fitted in Hewitt. I'm guessing this is very tight on budget, this team. So if you are in love with the Ryan pick, then go for it. Otherwise, yeah, that's what you're going to have to stare into and figure that out. Ryan, let's have a look. All right, so we've got Chris, Ridley, Whitfield, Hewitt. We've seen these names a lot. We've got Blakey at D5 over Chapman. Don't hate that at all. Blakey has looked good when he's moved behind the ball. Looks like he can score there as well. He obviously did that for bits last year. So if he can lock down that role, I really think there's a good chance he scores well, because they do need to replace Dawson on the wing. So you could see someone like Lloyd moving up the ground more. Maybe Blakey gets more opportunity to exit, or maybe he gets pushed onto the wing a little bit. Like, all of these things I think are decent free scoring as long as he's not being parked in the forward line this year or that half forward role. So I think there is value. Is it better than Chapman? Is it better than Richards? I think these are all pretty speculative picks anyway, so I've got no problems with someone going Blakey over the others. As we've mentioned, there will be no O'Driscoll for round one. I strongly believe that, so I'd be looking some way to get Hinge in instead of that rather than playing a donut, especially given De Conning's long-term job security isn't particularly great. Midfield is, whoa, 5 deep. Okay, so yeah, wow. So Sarong is in here. That's a name I haven't heard for a little bit. So personally, I don't think Sarong's breaking out to the next level this year. That's not the basket I'd be putting my eggs into. Freo does have a soft draw early, but if you wanted to bet on a Freo midfielder, I would still be doing that on Brayshaw over someone like Kelly, and then changing Cripps out. Then changing Sarong out to someone like a Cripps if you wanted to keep someone that 450 price tag. But personally, I'd be going down to Rao and freeing up that cash to fix up something like an O'Driscoll, to fix up your like Long to Stevens. Not a fan of running a loophole at M11. So that's what I'd personally be doing, moving Sarong down, fixing up O'Driscoll, fixing up Long. And then, we've talked about Witts and Grundy already. So personally, not somewhere I'm comfortable with placing a bet, but I can see it working out. So if you believe in Witts, then go for it. And then forward line here is looking pretty good. No Durden, and running the 3 102k rookies is not something I love here. I mean, this team's relied on a lot of cheap bench options, and I think that's going to be your downfall. So Sarong down to a Rao, fix up some of those bench rookies the best you can. And I mean, even like Blakey down to a Chapman might fix up some of the others as well. But otherwise good team. Like really interesting concepts. This could pay off. More risky than what I'm willing to take, but I can see where it's going. And then final one here for Oscar, he sent 2, so I'm just going to take the second of them, although it's always tempting to review a team that ended up with $0, but with no bench, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on there. So let's have a look. So deep defense, but has got Hinge, has got McCartan, has got De Koning, the 3 rookies I'd look at. So nice down back. Obviously, we've mentioned a couple of times, but Ridley, Short, Whitfield, Hewitt all share the same buy. So you just need to make sure you're thinking ahead and planning for that to make sure it's not a disaster. Things like how do you get Whitfield and Hewitt into your midfield for that first buy? And Dacos is going to be one of those options, but you need to find another downgrade target throughout the year, I'd imagine. In the midfield, so McRae, Took, Miller, Rao, Berry. This is great midfield. It's been compromised by not taking Stevens and going for 3 of the 117k options, which we might get. I don't know if it's worth doing that and not having Stevens, but I think this is exactly the thing I talked about previously, which is if you want to get Hewitt over Chapman, you do have to compromise your rookies. And so that does mean culling a Horn Francis or a Stevens and probably a Durden in your forward line. And I'm guessing if we look down, that's what we're going to see. Yes. So 3 1 and 2k rookies, which I think is a little bit sketchy, but the rest of the forward line I love. So the one big decision for you, mate, is can you keep Hewitt in this structure, or do you need to downgrade to a Gibcus or a Chapman and then use the money that you free up to pay for a Stevens or a Durden? I previously had a team that looked more like yours, and now I'm leaning more towards having like a Chapman or someone else in there so I can pay up for those rookies. I mean, otherwise great team. And if you're into behavioral economics, that's what I shouldn't say I do it. I work with behavioral economics. You guys can't set it up the top. It's in these tabs for my day job. So that's cool, man. Cool stuff. All right, so thank you everyone for tuning in for this Rate My Team. We got it done in under half hour, which is pretty good. Most of these have been hour-longs in the past, and even then I've had more teams to review than what I could possibly do. So I'm glad that we've kind of been able to do this quickly. I might do some more of these stealth releases in the future at either points in the video or bits and pieces. Just makes it much more manageable, and I guess I get to engage with people that are supporting me the most, which is always really pleasant. Not that I don't appreciate everyone, but it's good to show them some love sometimes. Thank you for tuning in. These teams are all looking great with some minor tweaks, and wishing you all the best for round 1. Hope everything goes well over the weeks ahead, and look forward to a full fun year of SuperCoach with you all. So.